But we do have some more people trickling in. I hope that everyone can hear me, and since it is just about at 3 o'clock, I am going to get started. So I hope that some of you have partnered with CSTEM before, and if not, I am here to tell you our motto that everyone is an artist and an engineer. I firmly do believe in that, being that I actually am a professional artist. So welcome to the photography session of CSTEM. My name is Alicia Garcia. I have a Master's of Fine Art, and I am a resident photography professor and instructor for the Houston Center for Photography. So it might sound like a really lowbrow, mundane thing to say, what is photography? I think we all have different drafts about what photography or image making is. So today, I'm going to pose that question to you guys, have that behind the back of your minds, the fundamentals of what is photography. Because for me, what makes photography successful is that we tell stories. And it's the narrative quality to a photograph that really helps us understand what the message is when we talk about powerful, impactful photographs. And at the very end, I'm going to show you some of the most impactful photographs at the beginning of my career that really helped me when I was being educated to decide photography was a really wonderful thing to aspire to do. So everyone has an opportunity to be a photographer. And in this day and age, anyone can grab your cell phone, tablet, and of course, the king of them all, your iPad, your computer, and take a really beautiful image. And I think since we are dealing with such young participants, this has never been more true. I have nieces and nephews that are from the ages of 1 to 5, and the fact that they can grab a cell phone so quickly and understand the action of taking a photograph is mesmerizing. That it's like nothing. And I am amazed every day by how quickly they learn. So for us, it's more of a tool, but for them, it's a camera. My joke is that my cell phone is a camera that just so happens to make calls. So we really don't have to go too far into the bottom portion of this slide that says these devices can leave a lot left to interpretation and can be deceptive. I'm not too worried about this challenge being conscious about social media and bullying, because we're dealing with really young children. We're dealing with the beauty of the snapshot, that we can take a really quick photo with your cell phone and it can be amazingly beautiful. And the best part is you can do that at 5 years old and have no idea what you just did. The idea is, how do you know which ones to keep? So just for our little fact knowledge, over 500 million photos are shared online each day, and I actually should be more specific about that. That's just on Facebook. We're not including any other social media engine when I'm saying that. So I think it's really important to think that the idea of a snapshot, which we once did with Polaroid cameras, now we're just snapping it with your phone, it has become life-changing as far as photography goes. So it's important for us to remind our students that this can be really good, but again, because we're sharing it, we have to make sure that we keep our students safe and that there's not anything badly happening in between. Student to student, just sending something to the wrong person, make sure that your students are in a safe environment, because photography has very, very tricky lines of sharing. But when we talk about our media giants, you have Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter. Put Tumblr in the middle. For those of you that know about Tumblr, it really is just a dedicated photo streaming platform. And as much as I love all of these areas, I have to tell you that, I've been in professional social media for a few years. The thought process that has festered from social media, we're hoping to kind of get away from when you teach students really young about photography, is snapshot aesthetic is great. But just taking one photograph and expecting that that's the perfect photograph is somewhat lacking. It's the mentality that it's one and done. And photography is a grown skill. So although social media is great, I like that your students are at an age where we don't have to worry about sharing like that, and it's more about saying, that's great, let's continue. The first one, maybe it's not the best, but we just tell them, that's great, continue, continue, and shoot and shoot. So I'm sure you guys have seen that we have C-STEM break, and for you and I, this is a great place for us to communicate as you have any trouble, issues, where needing to get the creative juices flowing. Please share and research and communicate here. It's a really safe environment where we know that everything is contained in our own atmosphere. If you look on the right, blog, share research, but for us, upload pictures and video, that's huge. For other challenges, it might just be documentation, but for us, that's the entire part of our challenge is photography. And you just have a simple question, show us the photo, and be none the wiser. I mean, just do that and we will be just fine. I love that we have an app, so even if you are on the go, you can simply ask that question right away. There's no need to go to a computer. And it is Apple and Android friendly, because before I think we only had it for iPhones. So yay, for me, Android user out there, that this is a good thing. But my joke I always tell people is that we will share images of practically anything. And as adults, we really find that laughable. But for children, you really do take photos of anything. And it's that childlike wonder that I really hope that your students don't lose, that they don't get discouraged and think that in their head what a good photograph, and I'm using air quotes here, that a good photograph means it has to look X, Y, Z. Because those beautiful discoveries, just take a photo of your food and realize that the lighting was just amazing where you were sitting, and nobody else's food will look like that unless they sit in the chair where you're sitting. So encourage them to just have their phone, like your parents' phone on them all the time, little camera, and just play. Photography is a learned skill. It doesn't happen overnight. But from my education standpoint, I am a photography professor and professional 100% of the day, and I firmly believe that photography can change the world. And people might say, how does art change the world? Photography is the most visual medium, and it's how we record our history. And if we don't do that, history can repeat itself. But we can change so much with photography. So my internal question here for you guys to ponder is, if people can take a good photograph when they don't even know it, so a child with a cell phone, can you imagine the difference when someone sits down and says, I'm going to make this photo and it's going to have this direct and deliberate message? There's a huge, huge difference. I mean, I even pose for you guys just to walk around, take your cell phone, take an unintended snapshot, then walk around and look for something very specific that you want to talk about. Thoughtful photographs have helped change laws. So all of us in this chat, or those of you that will be watching this video later, all understand the importance of education. We are educators. And what we're about to talk about is photography that has helped education. The photographers, some of my two favorite photographers are Louis Hine and August Sonder. They've helped shed light into child labor. And their photographs are the reasons that you and I got to go to school. But we didn't just have the opportunity, we had the right to go to school. You might not have liked it, and oddly enough, we're all teachers, but we did it because there was no other option. We didn't have to work in factories. And sometimes dangerous factories at that. During these time periods, children did not expect to live long. The average age was 13. They worked in factories where there was way too much soot, and there are chimney sweeps. I mean, we think back to like the Mary Poppins movie, and you see the little chimney sweep boy, and you realize that's a really sad moment, even as Disney portrays it. Because he's 11 or 12 because he can fit down the chimney and an adult man can't. Children lost digits every single day and were just maimed, and they didn't get to have full lives because they didn't have to go to school. And I as one, am really thankful for that we got that opportunity. But beyond just children, these photographers didn't just focus, say, on one particular venue, like business, commercial, education. He really did photograph everything. And Louis Hine helped make sure that we had proper safety construction laws. So I think our monument to the sky, the gift of architecture that America gave the rest of the world, was the skyscraper. And Louis Hine heavily documented what happened when we constructed the Empire State Building. And these photos, if some of you are afraid of heights, might make you feel a little queasy, but I think that they are chilling, because in today's day and age, nobody would think these should exist. But it's funny that before photography, before laws happened, this was every single day. I bet some of you have seen this. It's widely reproduced now as like a poster. People can buy this all the time. It's one of the most recognizable Louis Hine photos. But there is nothing supporting these men. And it's very, very chilling to know that the guy on the far left, to make sure everyone else could relax and smoke their cigarette or read their paper, he had to inch all the way over and be as far out there as possible so that all of the other construction workers could relax. And so now, Louis Hine has created a lot of laws. There are safety nets. Everyone has to be hooked in. Nobody is just going to fall to their death. And actually, a lot of people fell to their deaths while working on the Empire State Building. Can you imagine just teetering many stories up in the sky on a cable? And you're not connected to it. He's just hanging on the cable. To me, that is just amazing. To see also the landscape of New York change from the perspective of the Empire State Building. So for me, these are the ones that make me feel a little uneasy. For safety, of course. The man on the left always makes me feel like he's about to slip off and fall right down into the street. But what's most amazing is that Louis Hine took his camera and put himself in the same amount of danger as these men. So that's my only thing. Whenever you talk to your students, the first thing we want to make sure is that they never do anything that puts them into like an equal danger at all. We want to make sure that if you ever see that like they're taking photos and they're in the street, that is somebody there with them? It's just simple knowledge. When you put a camera to your face, our peripherals are down. We're looking at an object, and we're really tuned out of the rest of the world. So would your students ever be in this level of danger? Oh my goodness, no. But there are simple things, just peripherals being down. And every photographer, it's good to have somebody else with you when you're shooting, just to make sure. So I just highlighted on 2 male photographers, so I'd like to talk to you guys about, I'd say, the most historically famous female photographer in America. Her name is Dorothea Lange, and I'm sure some of you have heard her name before. And she documented people when they were starving during the Great Depression, and she's one of the very few photographers ever to be funded by the government to do that. So she has many photographs from that project, but in particular, she has one that's called Migrant Mother. And she helped show the true struggle of what was going on during the Depression in this one photo incredibly well. It is the most reproduced photo in American history. That's no celebrity, no anything to do with pop culture. This was an actual part of American history, and today it is still the most reproduced photo in America. The most reproduced photo in the world is not actually a photo, it's the painting, the Mona Lisa. But for our history and our culture, it is Migrant Mother. And it tells a huge story. Again, the narrative, which is so important, is that this woman they're migrating everywhere. She's having to pack up her family and move, as she's a migrant pea farmer. So she's going into the field and she's a pea picker and she's a cotton picker. And she looks onto the distance and there's a dust storm that's about to happen. And it's like, how much more battered down can you become? But I think what's really great about this photograph is that everyone assumes Dorothea Lane just got it perfectly on the first try. And back in the good old days of film, we did not get things on the first try. I'm hoping that some of you have had experience with film, so you know you shoot and you shoot a lot. When you look at the slides and the rolls of film, there are not winners on either left or right side of this particular slide of film. And some of it is direction. So sometimes you have to take multiple photos, and although that seems very natural for us, you'll always have one person that just seems as if one photo is enough. The photo before this, her two children are looking at the camera, one's running away. The photo after this, the baby that's in her arms is awake and it's not as calm anymore. So lots of photographs will help get what we call the decisive moment, the moment that you decide to click the shutter of your camera or press the button on your screen of your cell phone. And the decisive moment is that moment that pulls at your heart to say, this needs to be captured. So the previous photographs are successful because they have one thing in common. They're historical, and they're important because, again, of the narrative. But these images go beyond being shot and beautiful, and even a little bit beyond the narrative. They have a duty to make sure that we are aware to never have this happen again. So photography it not only makes breakthroughs and there's a new camera released every 6 months. We have a huge duty to history to make sure that things are properly documented and that we try really hard to do so. We have no excuses because there's cameras everywhere now. So I usually at this point will tell people there's so many possibilities of being a photographer, and if we had intermediate and high school, I would list a huge list of professions that you can do with photography that a lot of people don't necessarily think of. But we're dealing with younger participants, so I like to say that we can still talk about all the possibilities, and with all the possibilities we have good and bad. So we show the human spirit, its triumphs and its downfalls. So not every photograph where you have someone perfectly smiling, staring straight at the camera, is the one that makes the most sense. And we have the Boston Marathon on the left. We have people protesting in New York on the right. And those are photographs that need to be had. They're also the first color photographs I've shown you. I am not someone that's saying black and white is better than color, but that is a question I'm going to ask you later. Is a deliberate gesture must be made to make your photograph black and white, because we see the world in color. So although these might seem different from what we've previously seen, we look at the world in color. During some times, they didn't actually have, just like this photo of Dr. Martin Luther King, we didn't really have the option as easily to shoot in color. And I actually know the person that took this photograph. And it's amazing to meet George and hear all the stories he tells us because he has his camera on him all the time, even before we had smartphones.
So for me, I find this to be incredibly beautiful, that
moments like this are captured for history or historic purposes, and that you and I get to look at that and realize how impactful that is years later. Photography says, stop and see the world through my eyes, because if you slow down, you can see that there's a message to be heard. And sometimes slowing down might actually mean we take some benefits of your,
was it kindergartners and first graders, I believe? Of course, I could be wrong there.
And they're a lot shorter. So the idea is just slow down and realize that the perspective of your students is really low to the ground, and that for us, we don't see on that level. Pre-K through first. Thank you, Reagan. Since we don't see through that level and that perspective that we kind of ignore, I would say let them slow down and explore every little thing on the ground with their camera, because you have no idea how much you just take that for granted every single day. And it's easy for them too. So when I first started with the C-STEM challenge last year, Reagan Flowers asked me, what is photography? And I asked her the same question. And I gave her 3 words.
Photography is truth, is the definition I gave her.
And I said, and the most truthful photographs are the ones that have a story. This man has lost everything. And this is a very truthful story. I didn't go to some wrecked place and place him there. This man has lost everything. And remember that the truth, whether it is good or bad, both of them are good avenues for you and your students to explore. So that if they discover something that looks like it's tattered and falling apart, that doesn't mean it's bad. It actually means that there's so many textures in this world, you should let them do it. Half the time, photographers, we shoot for texture. And sometimes they don't come from the nicest things. So if we can take a moment and look at our pacing guide for the year, I think we can have just a little overview before we ask questions back and forth in the chat. So right now we're on the kickoff, and our kickoff on our cycle says October 25th, 2015. That will be happening later on. I can tell you that it's not a year in advance. It's happening in 2014. And that is the kickoff where we will both find out what our subject matter is that we're working with. So right now it's all cryptic and we're just generally talking about photography, but it'll get better as we go on. Cycle 2, November 15th of 2014, is plan and conduct research. So what you're going to realize with photography is all about planning. You've ever met a good wedding photographer? They show up an hour too early. They're always on time. We're always making sure that we have a plan and a backup plan. So please make sure that for every check-in that we have, that you realize that it's going to be we're adding on, talking about troubleshooting, and that it's not a one and done type of mentality, that I really don't want to foster that, so that your kids get really interested, and then later on if they do the C-STEM project when they get to be further on in elementary school, that they understand what they're about to encounter. So the next steps to complete your training, please join the 2015 group on C-STEM to answer the following discussion questions in the filmmaking discussion thread, and you will be provided a certificate acknowledging your completion after the 2 hour for your records. Remember to plan your C-STEM Challenge kickoff I cannot read today. C-STEM Challenge kickoff activities on your campus. And the challenge is revealed on October 25th.
I know that you guys will have a blast and it'll be fun, and I hope that we can pump up all of the students and have them
ready to make photos. And just realize that photography is a valid field to be interested in. So after the kickoff, I will see you and your students for our first Saturday,
November 15th on C-STEM break. I hope you guys enjoy this, and whatever question you have,
it's never a stupid question. If you're lost, please let me know, because I want to help you guide your students. So if you have any questions at all and you just want to do a direct email because you feel like that would be faster, my email is my first name .garcia@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, you can do that. And let me ask, was it our moderator, Reagan, are we asking questions here, or are they actually completing the questions on C-STEM break? She's typing. I'm just waiting. And Tammy, I see that you were typing earlier too. Did you have a question? Oh, Tammy, thank you. Okay, so the questions are loaded onto C-STEM break, and I do want to acknowledge what Tammy is saying. It's difficult to sit here quietly. I remember these images. How would you encourage an amateur to take chances on finding that one shot? Is it by happen chance or a keen eye? It's actually a little bit of both. It's always having your camera ready and available, but sometimes you just happen to be at the right place at the right time. And I think as an amateur, Tammy, have your camera ready. And I mean, you have to almost look like a tourist. Now, don't take a really nice camera if you're not going to a nice place. But if your photos give, as we get academic, Robert Barthes made a book, Roland Barthes, he called it the punctum. It was, if you can look at a photograph and it feels like it pierces your soul or your heart and it gives you that chill, you should actually get that chill when you take the photograph. It makes you happy. It shakes you somehow. So I'd say always look for that moment. What is a good resolution for an image? So we get asked this question a lot when we're teaching printing and output. Everything that we're looking at right now on the internet and anything you get from the internet is at 72 dpi. If you want to have your students print, just make sure your cameras are not set to the base level of file size. So if you're shooting on a Nikon, the language is basic, regular, basic, medium, and fine. Please select fine. And if you have a Canon, please select large. And that'll help you have a really nice image for your students. Now, if you guys have Pentax or Sony, I might have to rack my brain. I can't think of that one on the top of my head. Oh yes, and Tammy, thank you for asking the question. I actually really enjoyed that. So Reagan, are we about to head over? Oh, no, we're not. I'm answering a question. Why 72 dpi? Isn't that too low? It is too low. I say 72 dpi is low and it's for the internet. If you are printing, most of your cameras won't really tell you what your DPI is. Are you guys using point-and-shoot cameras? I assume so. We have such young participants. With point-and-shoot cameras, we can only go off of the file size. So when you happen to use a digital SLR, we can make what we call raw files. And I am sure some of you that are here have heard the phrase raw. And everyone just says raw is better, and they never tell you why. Now, I'll tell you what raw means, but you might not actually have access with that with the cameras you're about to use. RAW is what we call the closest thing to a digital negative. So when we shot film, we didn't worry about compression because it's non-compressed image. Film is as pure as it gets, and that's all we want to have is a beautiful, crisp, sharp, clean image. Now, if you don't have a camera that takes RAW because they're huge, and one, you can't open those photos up on any computer. You have to have special programs. You need to pick the largest file size for your JPEGs. And all cameras are created differently. So I give you a blanketing term of picking the largest file, and if you have very distinct questions, please email me. Tell me the model number, and I will completely tell you in and out how to work that camera. Because raw files are not the best when we don't have really expensive programs to work with them. So please choose JPEG so your students can use them at home, use them at school. I'm not expecting anyone to drop a ton of money here. Does anybody else have questions regarding what we just looked at, talked about? I know we looked at a lot of black and white with only a few color at the end. I think black and white or color is plainly acceptable. You don't really need to be exclusive of one or the other. And if you guys don't have any other questions, I will just encourage you to finish up your training then at C-STEM break. And by all means, if you decide that you have questions about those cameras, answer questions about cameras all day long. And mainly, I deal with digital SLRs. If you have a point and shoot, I'll just need to take a little bit of time to look that up and guide you guys correctly.
I don't want to give any incorrect advice here.
All right, Tammy. Yay! HCP is in West Alabama, so if any of you guys are there, please stop on by if you have a quick question.
And Reagan's informing me that we do have point-and-shoot cameras. So, teachers, it would be very helpful with your
Point-and-shoot cameras too if you guys let me know if every school, like if your school has Nikons, I don't know if another school has Canons, or if this is a blanketing system is providing you different cameras. So please encourage me like with your information and questions, because I might give you advice about Fujifilm, someone else at another school has Canon. So if you have questions, let me know. And I think I'm going to just depart from you guys, and I see that we had one person join, and we're about to wrap this up actually. All questions, I will stick around, about to just turn my mic off to be honest, and I will answer any text questions you have on the left chat for you guys. So I see that Tammy's been our like #1 participant. Thank you, Tammy. And other than that,
look forward for November 15th. Think about all the questions I've asked you guys, and
we're going to have a great time. I think childlike wonder is something that we need to foster and not diminish with photography. It was great to meet you, and thank you for your time.